because I don't like advanced too much.
Technically, yeah, it's very monotonous.
It's that juice that collects at the bottom of the trash. You know, that's what it is. That's what it is. Yeah.
I don't like how they have those rules set up. Like, hey, you can't use fire today.
Oh, the judge.
The judge says, I was like, only you can prevent forest fires. No fire, it's too hot. No fire.
You're curing yourself, no potions, and I'm like, what?
Why not?
Yeah,
like you find a thing of ice giants. Like, you can't use fire. I'm like, how are we supposed to kill them?
Just kill the judge.
What I do?
There are definitely levels that are like that, where you're like getting really trolled.
They're intentionally trying to Jew you.
Yeah, it's horrible gameplay.
It's fucked up.
Racism.
We got a lion, Jew, black guy.
German.
German.
There we go.
And we got the Italian.
I don't know what he is.
Italian stallion. We got the
You guys perform Captain Planet.
Wow. With our powers combined.
That was good.
I'll be Hart. I'll be Mati.
Oh, Monty.
Don't tell me what to do.
Welcome to That's Alt, a show where we get some adventurers together and try and find some shiny stones to save the world. I'm your host, Brian McBalls, and today is a special episode here. We have some special guests. Let me introduce our panel. We have Rawsheezy.
I'm the special guest, by the way.
No. He's
You?
the unspecial guest. We have Kristina, Misfit Girl.
Hello.
We have Tmmoh, the Lion
What's up,
of
guys?
Twitch. And we have Texas Size. He's also a streamer on Twitch. And these guys are good buddies of mine. They're here from out of state and out of country. Tmmoh reigns from the Netherlands. And
Yes.
yeah, we're going to have a special episode here of Final Fantasy, a 2-part episode. So we'll go ahead and start with you, Alan.
Yeah.
We have, we're going to go by genre, or generation. We're going to start with the NES generation, and we're talking about 1, 2, and 3. And this is the first thing I want to talk about, is the first 3 games establish certain attributes of the whole series, and they carry on throughout all of the Final Fantasies, and this includes items, enemies, etc. So, why don't you get us started, Texas Size, and we'll go over, why don't you talk about some of the attributes that carried over from the very first Final Fantasy, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. Potions, high potions, those came apparent. The whole name Final Fantasy, I think it started off because that was supposed to be the last game. Mm-hmm. So they called it Final Fantasy and ended up franchising out of that. You had the goblins, you had the class systems, warrior, priest, and all that. And I think that's kind of started the whole foundation for Final Fantasy.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of different things that came up. I know that chocobos got introduced in Final Fantasy II, and chocobos are in almost every Final Fantasy game.
They weren't in the first one?
Nope.
Okay, I thought they were.
Yeah, and then you got the common summons. Why don't you tell us about some of the summons that have started in the NES?
Well, some popular summons are like Ifrit, Shiva, Bahamut, King of Dragons, very popular.
The King of
Odin
Dragons.
usually shows up in every game. So a lot of things get established in the first game. There's like even the classes, like the look of the black mage is very iconic. Like if you show that to a gamer, they instantly recognize. If you draw a character with like a pointy hat, like dark face with light eyes and a robe, they instantly know it's a black mage from Final Fantasy.
Exactly. And so one question I want to ask about the older ones. They did establish all these things early on, and there's some character tropes too that were established here. Like 2 started having Sid as a return.
Right, Sid's gone through all of them. I'm trying to think who else's name. Airships. That started becoming common later on. And like you were saying, a lot of the bosses or enemy names would be the same. Like the what are the little flaming fireball guys?
Oh, the bomb guys,
Yeah.
the grenades, yeah.
The bombs.
Those were always in all of them. So I guess they knew what people liked and they tried to keep through with it.
I really like that aspect. I really like the continuity. Like those are just classic things that make a game Final Fantasy. To have those things like the items, like Excalibur, you always have like a set of mithril items. Yeah. I really like that. That should appear like in every Final Fantasy game. That's what it's all about.
And that's the good thing too, is that none of the Final Fantasies are, it is a series, but they're not direct sequels. So it's good to have something to bind them all together. Yeah. It's common enemies, items, etc.
There's this nostalgia factor like in each game.
Exactly. And that brings me to my next question. I don't know, whenever I ask somebody what their favorite Final Fantasy is, I never hear anybody say 1, 2, or 3. So, Rasheed, why don't you go ahead and start us off? Tell us why you think no one ever says 1, 2, 3 are their favorites.
There was no real depth. There was the music depth compared to the latter generation. They really don't compare. They're just dated.
What about story and character development? Do you want to expand on that?
Well, it's pretty 2D, I guess. The story itself, it's just a simple guy going out to save the world, and that's about it. Compared to the latter generations, where other characters got involved and the plot thickened because they had their own side stories and own music. And
so do you guys all agree that the originals were very little depth to them? It was just basically, hey, 4 strangers get together and save the world, pretty much.
I don't even remember the story of the first. I didn't even know there was one. I thought they just going out and killing stuff, kind of like Contra style, and just beat everything up, There's no story at all. But I think also, it wasn't as popular. How did you find out about games back then? You didn't have the internet, so a lot of people didn't know about it, and and a lot of people are more attracted to bigger graphics and things like that, so you don't hear a lot of people growing up saying Final Fantasy 1's their favorite game.
And I think a big part too, Tim, you mentioned to me earlier that 2 and 3 didn't even come out in the States.
Exactly.
Yeah, why don't you go expand on that?
Like 2 and 3, they took a long time to reach like distant shores. Most people. The numbering is like really weird because Final Fantasy 4 is known as Final Fantasy 2 here in the States, and I think number 6 is number 3, and then they jump to 7. So a lot of the games, some of the games never reach, or took a long time to reach distant shores. So that's probably why a lot of people don't mention them as their favorites, because a lot of started playing them at what are now known as 4 and 6.
Yeah, and so that one will segue into the SNES generation, because that is where I start hearing people have favorites, and that is because of the iconic stories. Arthur, why don't you go ahead and tell us about what your favorite story is of the 4, 5, 6?
Oh well, I've always vocalized 6 has always been my favorite, which is the Super Nintendo labeled as 3 when it came out, as you mentioned. I just think the details, with the amount of characters they had too. 6 had 12 characters. You have the detailed story of Locke, who's this treasure hunter, or some people call him a thief. And he's got that. He's got that deep story with Rachel, and she fell off, and she had amnesia, and right before she died, he mentions her name. So it really captivated you. And this is the 16-bit era. I imagine if that game was re-released with these nice new graphics, I think people would really get behind the story. It was great.
Yeah.
I think it was one of the first stories that I really was captivated by was 6. Gameplay, the active time battles, what I grew up with. I like that game, like Chrono Trigger. I just think the way they utilized the graphics in the Super Nintendo era was outstanding. I think they used all the coloring systems they've had, and I can't, I saw the best comment, I think Father Time can't diminish the game. I think it's great now, and it's always going to be great,
Definitely timeless. How about you, Tim? What is your favorite?
Well, also with the storytelling in 6, it's hard to convey emotions, especially with those little sprites, but they do that a lot in 6. They make the characters jump, and usually in the earlier games they're just static sprites. They don't really show emotion, but they try to do that a lot more as well, and that's what really grips you in the story.
So 6 was also your favorite?
I think 6 is also my favorite of that era. I did like 5 a lot because it has a job system. I'm a big fan of that mechanic that goes throughout the series. But story-wise, I think 6 is the strongest.
How about you, Kristina?
I'd also have to agree with 6, also because at that point now they're starting to finally kind of bump up, like you said, with the graphics and animation, where they're able to convey emotions a little bit more because of it. And even though it's still in the 2D world, they're starting to realize, oh, people enjoy, actually being able to see what's going on as well as acting it out or playing it out. And that really set them up for success in the future with, PlayStation 1 games like that.
How about you, Rasheed?
Well, 6 would have to be my favorite out of those 3.
Copycat.
Because of the the character development, and compared to the other 2, 2 or 4 was quite difficult, if I remember. That was
The Japanese version.
okay.
Yeah, the US version they dumbed down a bit and they made it a little easier, but the Japanese version is pretty merciless.
Yeah, because I remember fighting, I believe, Bahamut, and I believe that was the one. Yeah, that was trouble. Can't get past that.
That was
but
trouble.
the characters in, but the characters in,
Better.
this is coming from a guy that's never played RPGs. Anyway, 6 had all the characters, and you felt for each character, and the story was tear-jerking, really. That was the first game that one of the few first games that actually had me involved, to where I wasn't just playing with it and I'm done, and then I move on to the next game, and I actually got involved in it. I'm like, wow, the dialogue was quite beautiful.
I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I would say 6 is my favorite too, but I got to give a shout out to 4 because 4 was pretty revolutionary for its time. And while it's not as in depth or I guess complex of a story as 6, I still like Cecil. I think he's a good protagonist. He goes from being a dark knight from a paladin. There's some good opportunities there.
Yeah, a little bit of that.
Yeah, a little bit. And all the other supporting cast as well. There's a lot of cliffhangers where they make you think that certain characters have died, and you're like, oh man, they're killing people now. That's when you notice that the storytelling of Final Fantasy had gotten so good. It was like the game to see a story of, especially back then. There wasn't that many stories. I mean, in a time when you had games like Bad Dudes who were trying to save the president and eat a hamburger, Final Fantasy's coming out with this deep stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're saving the world and all these complex relationships. It's like a soap opera in 16-bit.
Yeah, that's soap opera for us young lads.
And it was really memorable. I mean, the opera theme, everyone knows the opera theme if they played the game. That's their favorite. Or Kefka poisoning the water, and it's just got so many memorable moments. It's a great game.
Yeah, it's really nice that there's like not one main character. They're all like they have like a common goal, but they're like basically all the main character. They have all have a very rich big background to them.
Oh yeah, and then I mean, of course, they expanded this this storytelling prowess with the PlayStation generation. And PlayStation generation brought us a lot of new things for Final Fantasy. I think this is when Square became known for their cutscenes and their technical abilities, because they the full motion videos were amazing. It blew people away with Final Fantasy VII. That was like an iconic game for its time. And I mean, they introduced one big thing. They started to mess with the battle system more and try to do more.
Customization.
Yeah, right. They're trying to make it more customizable, and that's the thing about 7 and 8. Those games are very customizable when it comes to characters. And so I want to ask you, I'll start with you, Arthur. Do you prefer the battle systems where they're very customizable and you can make your characters however you want, or do you like them more in a class style where they're more unique?
It's kind of a mix. I like some customization, but I like the challenge of having strength and weaknesses in people. That was the one thing, if I had to criticize 6, is I could have everyone hit hard and everyone cast and be a good caster. But I think, I like the games where you have the person that only casts and that's their strength, and have the people that do physical damage and kind of working in unison in the game. But I thought it was great when they implemented things like the Esper systems, the Materia system. I think that those were great, but I really feel I like the games where you have the guy that's, he's a warrior, he attacks, that's what he does, and you've got the person who casts, and that's what they specialize in. So I personally prefer having the class system over just, having a bunch of hybrids run around. You can do whatever you want. It feels like there's no challenge to me. It's just, and if you have all that, you have to use a little bit more of your noggin.
The noggin.
Your Texas noggin.
Texas noggin.
to do it. So I really love the class system. So personally.
How about you, Tim?
Yeah, I kind of agree. One of the big things I like about RPGs is like making characters the way I want them. But I do prefer to have limits. Like you can't have all the things. You know, you can't like be a good caster and a great fighter. There has to be a drawback, and that's what I like about some of the job system. Usually, you can like pick some abilities from one class and mix them. I mean, you can have a warrior who can cast white magic, but that's about it. You can't have like, he can also summon great, he can like cast fire and whatever. There have to be some drawbacks, but I do like to be able to customize my characters, but within limits.
Well, for me, since I'm a female and I like changing things and customizing things.
Oh, boy.
Oh God. Don't go there.
You went there.
No, I didn't. I really liked that. Like, I enjoyed 8, where the characters had a little bit more of their own separate roles to play. However, like, I hated the junctioning system. Like, for me, that was a big pain because it's like you're having to go all over. And like, for me, I'm kind of a cheater and I like to use guidebooks. So that was the only way I could know, oh, I need to junction from here and from here to get all the good stuff.
It'll be okay.
It's okay.
There'll be a time.
I'm sorry, I'm a failure to you.
There'll be a time.
But that being said, you know, as much as I enjoy having multiple like classes and having the job systems like in the older games, it started becoming too much for me. It was too many options. So them limiting it to, you know, 7 or 8 main characters, and they all have their special abilities or, you know, whatever, but you can still make them a fighter or a mage or, you know, your healer. Like Eris is usually always going to be your healer because that's all she's good at.
Yeah,
so,
she's pretty much stuck there.
Yeah, there's nothing else that's going to happen with that. But like, who is it? XIII? His special, what was it? The gambling?
The slots?
Yeah, that was fun for me. I love that.
So you're a gambler, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Moving on.
How about you?
Well, I prefer the materia system.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. See, there are limits, okay? I think that the materia system is still like one of the best systems, mainly because you could do whatever you want. You can customize, all that. But I do understand the argument where that makes them all technically the same, but each character is different. I mean, in terms of power. Okay?
I would argue that it's minor stat differences. Minor.
I would agree.
Okay.
I don't think there's a big enough gap.
Unless we're talking about Eris. Because Eris was
She's
clearly...
the only one.
That's like a huge, that right there, okay, that makes sense. But I mean, whenever you get to like, you're not gonna have like Red 13 heal or something, you know what I mean? You're gonna have him do his limit break.
Why not?
Because of his limit break.
Oh, I mean, yeah, the limit
yeah.
The limit breaks and the aesthetics are essentially the only thing that's different. And minor stats.
But they make a huge difference. Like, you're not gonna have, exactly, you're not gonna have Cloud heal. You're gonna have him do Omnis Slash. You're gonna have him do that the entire time. You're not gonna have him heal if he has a chance.
I don't know about y'all, but whenever I play Final Fantasy VII, my last 3 are always Barret, Cloud, and Sid because they have the multiple hit limit breaks.
Yeah.
If I can do 9,099 damage, 20 times versus once, I'll obviously choose them. Because Red 13's Cosmic Memory, come on.
It's nothing compared to like. But I mean, like when you're fighting weapons, obviously I know what you're talking about. Yeah. But I still think that there's a distinction, a big enough distinction to where it's that system is still sort of overpowers the class system. But I do appreciate the class system too, just not to the degree of that.
I'll just throw in my 2 cents. I actually think 9 was the best because it had the class system, but it also had enough customization where you couldn't be all powerful, and every character had their own uniqueness to them.
Yeah.
And I forgot what they called them, but
Eidolons for the summons.
Well, the Eidolons were the summons.
Yeah.
And there was only 2 summoners.
Yeah.
But there's the attribute system that you got from the armor. And you only had a certain amount of points that you could attribute. So you can make yourself strong against insects, strong against dragons, but you couldn't get all of that. You had to cherry pick for each section of the game.
Yeah, I like that as well.
You couldn't be all powerful. Whereas 8 and 7, you were a god. Like especially 8. That system was broken.
Really broken.
Awful.
It is very broken.
I like it just because of that.
You like it? Well, it's entertaining for speedruns.
Yeah, it is.
When you can get like 99 triples in the first hour of the game, and then you have maxed out strength.
I just one-shot everything, and especially with the limit break system in that game, it's just horrible.
When you know how to exploit that battle system, Zell's mom is the boss of the game pretty much. Because once you get the Zell card from her, the game's over.
Yeah.
The game's over. You turn his card into like 99 triples and you're done.
I mean, if you can get through a whole game with just attacking, which when I was a young dumb kid, that's what I did, and as an older dumb kid, so but I can get through the whole game to just attacking, and it was so easy. Yeah, I thought that was real easy.
And
and if someone needed to cure, well, I had everyone on cure, so I could just cure them up.
That was the thing about 8 too. Is they didn't encourage using your spells because you had to junction them to your attributes. If you had 99 triples, you didn't want to use the spell because that made you weaker.
Yeah.
Every time you use it, it makes you weaker.
It's like your armor.
At the same time, I mean, they added a challenge with looking for the different summons. If you wanted to get any of the extra summons.
Yeah.
That was like, which one was it? Doom Train, I think. That one was pretty difficult because you had to get different.
You have to get really hard to get items.
Yeah, exactly.
Or like the Master Tomberry, I think you need to kill like 100 Tomberries before he shows up.
Did you guys care? I mean, really? I mean, to go after that?
I'm one of those people though. I like to fully complete the game. I like to get everything extra.
He does.
The first time around.
I do too.
I don't like to
even
replay
8?
it.
Final Fantasy 8?
Oh, I hate 8. I didn't even play it.
Game's atrocious.
It's bad. It's horrible. It's a really bad game.
It's a bad game.
You don't even I won't even get. We'll get to that later. I won't get ahead on that. We'll talk about 8 later.
Oh gosh.
My goodness.
We'll go into it.
And 10 too.
I'll keep us on track. We're going to talk about the PS2 and beyond era because I think Square really took some gambles in the recent years. They really tried to innovate with the battle systems. Of course, voice acting came into play. They finally had voice acting. Which was really, that was something new for the Final Fantasy series, which was all text-based.
Yeah.
Now you're hearing the voice actors. So my first question about the modern games, I would say, I'm just going to mention these because we're basically talking about the direction Square is going. And Final Fantasy XI was an MMO. Final Fantasy X was pretty reminiscent of the PS1 games. There was a few additions, but it was pretty much, I would count it as almost part of the PS1 age. But then you get different with 12, which changes the battle system completely. It's almost like an MMO combat simulator. And 13, the paradigm system is almost like auto battle. So I'm going to start with you, Rasheed. Do you like the direction Square is going with Final Fantasy?
No, I don't. I think it's awful. I mean, because it's a fashion show now. They're substituting. They're substituting gameplay for graphics.
J-pop.
Pretty much. You have cats dancing in the middle of battles, changing clothes. It's awful.
Stares at me.
It's awful. It's awful.
And then let's hear the other side of the coin.
Okay, so and now here's me though. The first Final Fantasy I played was 10. So I worked my way back after that. It was just the first one I picked up. But that being said, 10 is not my favorite by any means. What ended up being my favorite was 12 because of it followed the old reminiscent kind of castle, lords type medieval, I guess, story of, having heroes that save the world. But the battle system was so, honestly, at first, the first time I played 12, I hated it. And then I played it again, and I gave it another chance, and I loved it. Just because once you get into that battle system, it's so addicting. I probably spent a good 140 hours on that game.
On the second playthrough?
Yes. And there's just a lot of extra content. It was challenging, but it wasn't too challenging or too easy. I felt like it just had the perfect balance. And I felt like Square just moving forward with, trying to give the battle system a little bit of a different chance. It actually worked out. But at the same time, then they made 13. And it was very linear after that, so.
Yeah. So you worked back from 10.
I went from 10 to 7 to 8 to 9 to 4 to 3 to 6 to 12.
I'm confused. I'm confused.
I bounced all the way around, but
Are those the numbers from Lost?
But after working my way through, I played everything through multiple times. Pretty much every game I played at least twice, and out of all of them, I'd have to say I was happy with where Square Enix was headed.
And you're still happy where they're headed?
We'll save that for later.
Okay. Well, actually, I do want to know specifically, because I know you play the newer ones.
Yes.
I've only played 20 hours into 13. Do you like 13 and its sequels? Do you agree that they should be making more and more sequels of 13?
Okay, so the thing with 13 was they left it so open-ended, it had to have a sequel because it was confusing. You're like, what are they talking about? I don't understand this story. I just want to play another one just so I can understand what the heck they came up with. Mm-hmm. It was that misplaced, which I didn't like that. But in the sequel, 13-2, they actually fixed the battle system. It was totally addicting, but the story was just as confusing. So they made a third one. And it's like, which will be coming out later this year, I guess. But it's just like, why?
Square doesn't even know what direction they're going.
No, and it's a beautiful game. Like you said, it's more about the outfits and it had a lot of cool bonus downloadable content and stuff. But story-wise, it was not nearly as gripping as, the PlayStation 1 games that we used to grow up with. And now it's more, how can we make the graphics even better? And the battle system was fun. I actually really enjoyed what they did with the battle system. But other than that, it was kind of like, wow, why did I waste my time on this? Now, I played 10-2 because of the story, oddly enough. Because I wanted to know what happened to Titus and Yuna, and I was so excited. So
Titus?
You had to.
Titus?
I hated that they said Titus. I think it's Titus.
The official pronunciation, apparently.
Whatever.
Titus?
Titus. But with 10-2, it was a percentage-based game, so you had to get 100% to get the perfect ending and see him and her together again or whatever. Yeah, I got 99%. I was so pissed off.
Was it worth it? Oh, wait, no, you didn't see it.
I got 99%, so I had to wait till YouTube got created to see the final ending. That was with my guidebook, too. I missed one part of the guidebook. I wasn't paying attention. 1%.
Such a shame.
Yeah,
1%.
Terrible.
So, Tim, do you like the direction Square Enix is going?
I like Kristina. I really like 12 actually. I like the combat system. I think if you're used to Final Fantasy, it's a bit like you're like, what is this? But when you get the hang of it, and I'm like really lazy, and you can like customize your characters to do everything for you. Like usually you just run around a dungeon and you encounter monsters and you just attack. But you can just set it up to like do it for you, and then when you reach like a hard encounter, you can like get back behind the wheel and start curing or whatever, and manage your characters a lot better. So I like that about the game, and I really like the Evilist setting. I would like them to see bring that back.
Yes.
How about in this generation? What do you think about 13 and going forward? Do you agree with that?
Well, I haven't played 13, but I've seen a lot of gameplay of it. And I don't think I really like the medieval setting. I don't mind a bit of like steampunk, cyberpunk here and there, but I really don't want to see him go into spaceship and explore the world or whatever.
How about you, Arthur? Do you like spaceships and?
Yeah, I do like some spaceships, but like you say, do you like where the direction's going? I think the scary thing is I don't know where the direction's going. Like Rasheed said, where is the direction going?
Where are they going?
Where are they going? They're in so many different directions.
You probably shouldn't laugh anymore.
And like I try to put my feet into if I was the game company, and they put games to where the market is. And if you ask generation now, they'll say the game sucks because the graphics suck. So they're all about graphics right now, and I think things like story and gameplay has kind of taken a back seat. So in that aspect, I don't think I like where it's been going. I think that's really, like you saw E3, what is it? It's all nice, beautiful games, and they're trying to make it more real. Mm-hmm. Not to get off, but that's where I see it, and so, I kind of just don't know where it's going. Sphere grids, junctions, and this paradigm system. I've never played 13, but I heard 13 from most people I talked to who have played it, so they didn't like the game. So
I just know if you just went up to the head of Squeenix, it's like so
squeamish.
So where do you think you're going? He'd be like, well, I don't know.
Exactly. They don't know. They don't know.
And so
It'd be like, we bought idols.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, like you had mentioned, they made 11. They kind of threw themselves into the MMO world. They had made a Final Fantasy 14. And they released it maybe they didn't release it off a beta test, but I played the beta test for it. It was terrible.
Oh, no, they actually did release it, and it was bad. It was so bad they publicly apologized for it, took it back,
and now they're like re-releasing it into the world. And it's like, so obviously, the graphics aren't necessarily getting them that much further anymore. And me personally, the only thing I've been excited about lately for Square Enix was Versus 13, which now they have renamed it to
15.
Is it 15?
Yeah.
Okay. I was excited because when they originally announced it, they said that it was going to be in a real world setting, so not necessarily fantasy so much anymore. And they had said that the world that it was going to be in was almost like a parallel of 13, but on a different planet or whatever. But that the battle system was going to be totally different. It just sounded like something totally new. And when I saw screenshots from it, the graphics look like a hint of Final Fantasy with a mixture of I don't know, like Mirror's Edge or something, where it's just so real and so powerful. And I was like, wow, that's totally different. But they have literally put it on the back burner for so long. We're just now hearing, oh, they changed the name because they haven't done anything with it.
Yeah.
The one good thing I would say, the one good thing I like that I've been seeing is them remaking games. Like when I bought Final Fantasy IV for PSP, great remake, the After Years, I thought it was awesome.
Yeah, I know that was a segue into.
Oh, was that you're going to go into?
Remakes?
Well,
Yeah.
Because they are remaking for the
doing
handhelds and the mobile market.
that's great.
Yeah. Why don't you go ahead and tell us what you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I thought the PSP remake was great. The PS1, they released 6 and 4.
4, 5, 6.
Threw some FMVs in there, threw some extra bits in there, bestiaries. That's great. I like those things. I heard the mobile game was terrible, though. It's like you just move your finger and it was like $15, and they overcharge on it.
I've actually been playing Final Fantasy Dimensions on the mobile
Is
phone.
it good?
I'm quite enjoying it. It's very classic Final Fantasy. The story is not too great, but I like the gameplay so far. They bring back the job, so I'm very happy with that.
I
That's
like
good.
that they're doing that. That's them throwing a bone to the old school fans.
Yeah.
I really wish they would make Final Fantasy. I wish they would just trash what they have for 15, just put it in the dumpster, and they would.
That liquid at the bottom of the bag.
The liquid at the bottom. And I wish they would just make a freaking very clean HD 2D sprites.
That would be beautiful.
A 2D game. They don't even have to spend that much money on it. Just get some art assets in there. I don't need full FMV sequences. I want something that was in the SNES era redone in HD 2D sprites. Beautiful.
Capcom did that, right? They did that with Mega Man.
Yeah, Mega Man, they went back and they made the 8-bit style Mega Mans. Yeah, and that was awesome. People loved it.
Yeah.
And I would love to see them do that. I mean, and don't even just limit it to a handheld. Bring it to the consoles too.
Sure.
Why not?
Yeah.
Well, and it's everyone has been begging for forever to redo 7. And it's they did Crisis Core. So obviously they've got the graphics capabilities for it. And now they're doing 10 and 10.2 HD for Vita and PS3. It's they've obviously got the time.
Right.
They haven't done it for whatever reason. Are they just holding out on us so they can release it in one big anniversary package that's going to cost $1 million so they make money again? Or are they just nope, we don't care. Sorry.
They probably got some dudes in a bunker somewhere working on it in case Square has a rainy day. Well, when they're about to go bankrupt, they go, "Hey, look, we got this."
They just press this button, there's this big red button. Release it now.
I don't
It is
get
time.
it, though. They sit there, they have Final Fantasy IV, they make it for the DS, they make it for the PSP, they make, this release for the PlayStation. They haven't done anything with 6.
Yeah. I want to see a 6.
I want to that's a great game. I would love to see that for a next-gen console. I would pay through the wazoo for a game like that. I don't know why they wouldn't release it, and I think a lot of people share my same sentiments.
I would be more hyped for a remake of 6 or 7 than what I've seen from Final Fantasy 15. I'm probably not going to play 15 from what I've seen.
Unadulterated trash.
Yeah.
Unadulterated.
It looks like it would hurt there.
I have hope for it. We'll see. I don't know.
My last question I want to ask for this segment. I want to talk about just briefly about some of the spin-offs that they did with the Final Fantasy series, because of course it used to just be a numbered series 1 through 6. Then they started branching out. They did Final Fantasy Mystic Quest, which came here to the States. They had Final Fantasy Tactics, which I believe is beloved amongst all of us.
Yes.
Then they started doing some questionable things, like Final Fantasy, the movie, Spirits Within.
Oh my God.
Which crashed a production company.
We don't talk about that.
Then, there's other things too. Like they did their first sequel of a Final Fantasy game, XIII, which I know she likes.
And I don't.
And you don't.
Yeah.
And let's just talk about some of these spin-offs. Rasheed, why don't you go ahead and tell us about a spin-off you think was successful and one you think was not successful?
I think that Final Fantasy Tactics, has to be probably one of the most successful out of all the spin-offs because of all the characters and the depth of that game, plus the music. The music probably has the best score of any Final Fantasy, to me, you know. And it's like I always say, it's like Game of Thrones, but in the Final Fantasy universe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A very political story.
Yes.
Lots of backstabbing.
Yes, all that.
It's very good. And,
I play Tactics music in my car when I drive around, you know? It's a great soundtrack.
It's wonderful. And probably the worst would have to be...
Say it.
10-2. That has to be the worst. Yeah, that has to be the worst. When I first saw it, I thought it was a joke.
You mean J-Pop Dance Dance Revolution?
Yeah.
2.
Let's just remove that name and put FFX 10x2 on here. There you go. Done. That's it.
how about you, Kristina? Well,
Favorite spin-off, I have a tie. Does that work?
Yep.
Not for the same reasons. Tactics, loved it. Loved Tactics, had so much fun with it. I didn't play Tactics till like way on later in the Final Fantasy world. And then I was like, why didn't I play this sooner? Probably because when I was a kid, I didn't get the strategy as much, and now I'm able to play it, and I had so much fun with it. And then it's a tie for, I think it was DS, or maybe it was DS game, Chocobo Tales. It was just a bunch of random mini games that were kind of based on Final Fantasy stuff, but it had little mini like cactuars and Townberry Kings, and you would like fight them, but it was all like a card game.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a lot of fun with it. Like, it doesn't equal out to Tactics by any means, but as far as like a little side story, I had fun with it. And then worst spin-off, oh man. You know, I'm actually gonna go with Spirits Within, because that just, I remember buying that and I was like, oh, it says Final Fantasy, I'm gonna buy it. This is gonna be awesome. And I was so confused. Like, what on earth does this have to do with Final Fantasy?
not a damn thing.
Sid was in it.
Sid was in
There
it.
we go.
There we go. No chocobos, no nothing. I was just like, why?
No fantasy. It was a sci-fi story.
Yeah, it was a sci-fi movie. I just couldn't do it.
James Woods was in it. How about you, Tim?
Thanks, James Woods.
Well, I like them. I really love Tactics. It also has like a very clear story to it. Usually, some Final Fantasy games you have a hard time like telling what's going on, and it's pretty clear in Tactics. I like the characters, the setting. I mentioned before, I like the Evilist setting. It has the best job system of all the games.
For sure.
And I just love playing it. I also played the Tmmoh 11 back in the day when MMOs weren't that big yet. There was no WoW yet, so I quite enjoyed that. I love my samurai. I still think about him fondly every now and then. But the game was.
He said fondly.
Fondly.
Yes, I love that guy. But it wasn't that great of a game. It basically had you killing red crabs, blue goblins, and then you moved on to blue goblins, red crabs, or whatever, or the other way around. Or did it just say the same thing? I don't know. And then there's like yellow goblins, and it's pretty bad. It's hard to solo.
Palette swaps crabs and goblins.
Yeah, basically that's
Red,
about
yellow,
the game.
green.
Yeah. I'd say Tactics, unless Crisis Core counts as a spin-off, because I liked it.
Yeah, it's a
So,
spin-off.
yeah, I like Crisis Core. I played that on the PSP. I thought that was a great spin-off, too. I kind of like the story of Zack, how it progressed. I thought it was really nice. Tactics had all the elements of a Final Fantasy. You had the chocobos, you had the grenades, and I thought it was great. The job system was amazing. The story was great. And worse, I mean, it's hard to hide. Spirits Within. I mean, I remember sitting with my friend, and I remember, because I think they spent billions to make the movie, I think, right?
They spent a lot of money.
I know they spent millions.
They crashed their production company.
Yeah, that was it.
I remember sitting there with my friend when the movie ended. I said, I think Square's done. I was like, dude,
This is their Final Fantasy.
this is the Final Fantasy. What made them is now going to break them. And I thought it was actually, I thought Enix bought out Square. I was like, where did they come up with all this money to buy out Enix?
Yeah.
So I was just shocked. I left there, and it didn't seem like Final Fantasy at all. Like, there's no no Mogs, no Chocobos. I didn't see the Final Fantasy in it at all. So
Sid was in it.
woohoo!
James
Wood was in it.
Hey, one more thing about Tactics, though, because we're all like Tactics. Who's the best character in Tactics?
Oh, there's no
my
question. Sid.
gosh.
Why
Well,
don't you tell us, Rasheed?
one of my favorite characters, his name
Thunder
is...
God Sid, thank you. Beowulf is garbage. On to Kristina. Sid?
Sid.
All right, can we hop off Sid for a second, please? Let's hop off. Let's go.
The Sid train, all aboard.
Yeah.
Whoop, whoop.
Yeah, it's pretty...
Well, in the remake, you can play as a Dark
They
Knight.
added, yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
That's pretty OP.
Yeah, it's pretty OP. Sid's pretty OP.
He always
Yeah.
had this...
But if you want to name the worst, what was that girl that the only moves could do was break armor? She had to save the queen.
No, I don't even... Miranda?
Beowulf or something.
Meliadul.
Yeah, she was horrible. I thought she was.
He had this running
In
joke.
the remake, they let her things do damage to
Yeah.
things without armor now.
Yeah.
So she's actually decent.
He had this running
But
joke.
Orlando does everything better.
He had this joke where they in the strategy guide, you
Yeah.
might know these strategy guides. Once you get Orlando in the game, you turn the page and it says the end. That's it. The game's over.
Yeah, well, pretty much.
Oh, yeah.
You're in chapter 3, and it says you have saved Thunder God Sid. And then you turn the page, the end.
Yeah, even though it's like
It's okay.
You turn it again, it says game's over.
game's over.
Stop turning the pages.
They actually printed out like 100 more pages. Just leave it alone. Game's done.
Yeah.
It's like if you can't beat it now, you're worthless.
Pretty
Tells the
much.
reader they're worthless.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Pretty much. So that's going to conclude today's segment, part 1 of our Final Fantasy discussion. Join us next time when we're going to ask all the controversial questions that Kara Karn doesn't like, such as our favorites and our least favorites. This will probably get a little heated. So join us next time, and everybody's going to return. And as always, remember to follow us on Twitter at Ultness, and visit our fine website, ultness.com. There's some good stuff over there here. And also, I would like you to follow these guys here. We have Tim, the Lion of Twitch. You can find him at twitch.tv/TMMOH.
Mostly play RPGs.
Yep, he is the RPG Lion of Twitch. And Alan, Texas size over here, he also plays the RPGs.
Yes, I do.
He's famous for his
He
160
destroys
hours,
the ones
60
he
nuggets.
likes.
his 160-hour Chrono Cross completion.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about the Nuggets.
Oh, and then his Nugget Challenge too, which we also partook in.
Yeah.
I still feel it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can follow him at twitch.tv/Texas_size. So please follow these fine gentlemen.
Awesome.
Until next time, keep breeding chocobos or something.
Chocobos.
So,
Beowulf, man, that guy trashes Orlando.
He's garbage.
He's real deal.
what you gotta do is have the haste on Orlando. He just walks up, holy explosion, the game's done.
The game's done?
Yeah, the game's done.
Lightning stab.
Orlando gets one-shotted.
Even if he survives, you lightning stab him, he gets silenced.
No, what if he doesn't have Excalibur? Then what happens next?
Why would you take it off?
Because he's useless.
Yeah.
I mean, the only reason you take it off is so you can make him dual wield.
And it's his
so he has
sword.
2 Excaliburs.
You guys
Yeah.
are
It's his
so
sword, so you can't
unbelievable.
transfer it to Beowulf because it's like his sword.
Yeah.
That'd be cheating.
It's got his name on it.
All over Sid.
In the
No.
fine print.
All Beowulf
all.
does is raise chickens. That's all he does. He's trash.
This is trash because you guys need to hop off Sid,
Dude, his name is Thunder God Sid.
Okay,
It's not so much
it's
him.
relative.
It was that spell because he hit someone for 999 and then he'd get 999 hit points.
He
It
can
was that
absorb-
spell.
He can absorb, he can silence, but everything he does.
then his sword hasted
you
him.
don't even need the status effects because they die in one hit anyways, doesn't
Yeah.
it?
He broke the game.
He really did.
And
pretty much.
let us not forget our age-old conflict of Balbangs.
Oh yes.
What is the last name?
Beowulf or
The father of Ramza died of a common house cold. And he's so therefore he's not as strong as Thunder God
But the
Sid.
story clearly says he
We're not
achieved
here.
the highest rank of night.
Beowulf exceeds rank. He's a
Highest
god.
rank.
Thunder god.
Heavenly
Night.
Heavenly Knight.
Night.
Right there. Done. Done, son.
This episode's over.